In the grand theater of life, we all seek a comeback, a resurgence, a rekindling of our inner fire. But how do we spark that flame? Welcome to Reignite Resilience. This is not just another podcast. This is a journey, a venture into the heart of human spirit, the power of resilience, and the art of reigniting our passions.
Welcome to another episode of Reignite Resilience. I am your co-host, Natalie Davies, and I'm so excited to be here with you all. Pam, how are you?
I am absolutely fabulous. Just coming off of a 4-day conference around just incredible speakers from all over the world. Met some amazing people. So I'm kind of on cloud nine. And then
I like it.
You and I were just talking about the rain. It never rains in Colorado.
No.
And we were heading to an event, and I walked through the hotel, and I'm like, who started raining? And it was raining like a hurricane raining.
Yes.
And so by the time I got to the car, I was like a wet dog. So
drenched. Exactly. Drenched.
Yeah.
Which so funny. Like it is. I mean, we're living through it. It's we have a little bit of a storm that's rolling through. And so I have an umbrella in my car because I grew up in the South and it always rains. So I carried my umbrella, and I got out of the car as the rain let up, and then I got back into the car as the rain was letting up, and I thought, well, that was a waste. But I was prepared and ready to go.
Here's my problem. My umbrella is in the trunk of my car.
Of course.
I had to crawl through my car to get to the umbrella. So I was like, I should probably rethink that. Whatever. We're here.
Oh my gosh. The struggle is real for all of us. If you're ever wondering, in Colorado, when it rains, we don't know what to do. It rarely rains here. But we are happy to have the rains. I mean, as we're recording this, we're coming off of 5-6 fires that broke out in Colorado. So I know that there are quite a few men and women that are still fighting to put those out. So I'm happy that the rain, Mother Nature, is on our side and giving us some rain to take care of that.
It's a good thing.
Oh my gosh. Well, Pam, we have a guest today. Surprise, listeners. We have a guest and I'm so excited. We always have an opportunity to learn so much. At least that's what I go into each episode thinking, gosh, what will we learn? What are the nuggets? And I think that today is no exception to that.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, we have Mr. David Buck, who is the author of The Time Optimized Life. He was amassed 35 plus years of organizational and time management experience that has led him to start Kairos Management Solutions and the Infinity Lifestyle Design Program. And David empowers business professionals to overcome the struggle of a lack of flexibility in their lives. Okay, just that alone. We can just start with that.
Yes,
and he helps his clients craft a strategy to optimize their time that defines a lifestyle focused on meaning, purpose, and joy. David, welcome to the show.
What an honor to be here from, in my case, soggy Florida, as we just went through hurricane or tropical storm Debbie.
Yes.
And she dumped a lot of rain on us. And so a little bit different situation, but still, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Fabulous. And you guys are okay. I'm hoping that all is well in your neck of the woods.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was a big rain producer. Thankfully, not a lot of damage.
Good.
Yes. Perfect. Yeah. And I think dumped is the right description. Everyone that I've talked to, the friends that I have in Florida, all describe it the same. We were dumped on.
Yeah. Buckets.
Yeah. I love
and
it.
We're used to it. I mean, we're in Florida in summertime. You rarely go a day without rain anyways. So it was just more prolonged and more pronounced.
I love that. Well, I'm happy that you are able to join us today. We are excited to dive in. I would love to just have you share with our listeners a little bit about that 35 years of experience that you were able to acquire, because organizational and time management in a 35-year span, I think that is significant. And I can only imagine the things that you've seen, worked through, led, helped navigate through. So why don't you share with our listeners your story and how you've come to where you are today?
Well, again, thank you both for allowing me to be on the podcast. It's such an honor. And a little bit about my background, heavy on the sarcasm here, but I started my sales career early on, first job out of college. And I learned that these amazingly, stunningly good looks and huge charisma weren't going to get me very far in the sales world. So I had to figure out something else. And again, heavy on the sarcasm.
I was going to say, it'll get you somewhere.
And I found that what I did in being more prepared than my competition was actually the gateway for me to be successful in a sales career. And then adding on top of that, I found when I used my time well, but yet better yet, when I helped my clients indirectly use their time well, meaning I made it easy for them to deal with me, whatever the product or service I was selling, that opened up long-term, good, solid relationships. So I hung on to that even when I began to lead teams. I always felt that many of the people who reported to me were better pure salespeople than I was. They just knew how to connect well. And what my value was is great. Now let's take that and add in a time efficiency to things, and nothing will stop you. And that became and defined my success. And then about 4 years ago, I found myself helping friends of friends, family members, their friends, helping them to be more productive in their life. And I'm like, well, there seems to be kind of a business here. And that's led me to start Kairos Management Solutions and the Infinity Lifestyle Design, where I help people in two avenues of their life. I help people who are in career, and those are individuals, teams, and entire businesses, get that flexibility aspect. How can I have as much flexibility in my life? And then I also help individuals and couples who are thinking about heading into retirement or post-career life. What are you going to do with all that extra time that you're going to have on your hand? So those are the two segments I deal with, and have a lot of fun and a ball doing it.
Absolutely. The time management piece, being more productive. I mean, we hear this all the time in coaching with our clients. And so I would love for you to dig a little bit into that and some of the strategies that you found work for people, because I know that's going to resonate with the listeners.
Sure. Thanks. Great question. I have 5 key categories I work with customers on. The first one is what I call planning. Second is task administration or management, because people really struggle there. The third is focus. The fourth is organization. And the fifth, which is an often overlooked element of people managing their time, is their personal care. They forget to invest not only in their physical, mental, but I think it's important, a spiritual component. When you add all those elements together, it often helps you then work much better in the other 4. So those are the 5 categories that I deal with. And I work with clients on, when you get it down to the single most attribute that people struggle with, it is distractions. And I define distractions as an internal disruption. You own it. It's nobody else's fault but yours, where you allow yourself to move your focus from something more important to less important. And I don't care where you are at in your career, whether you're first starting out or you're a CEO, everybody struggles with distractions. It's my biggest personal time management challenge as well.
That's huge.
That is huge. And it's everyone today, especially in the world that we live in, where, our cell phones have everything on it, emails, everything's on there. So that people can reach us at any moment if we choose to allow them to.
Yeah.
And we tend to do that. And that's a great point, because our smartphone is an amazing productivity tool. Wow, it's opened up so much stuff. But it has also, on the flip side, it is the single biggest element that causes us to be distracted.
Yeah. And so, David, you say that it's an internal piece, and I think Pam chose the right word. We choose to have those pop up and distract us, right? So it's the choice that we're making. And this is a conversation that Pam and I have had for many, many years, and we've gone through to intentionally remove some distractions that we know. So we know with our phones, we can't get rid of that, but we don't have notifications on our watches. We don't wear that. We use a note-taking device that does not have any notifications or other apps or notifications that pop up, I guess, outside of the apps for that device. So we try to remove as many as we can, just because we know we may like to have distractions in our life. It's a great outlet. So, I mean, if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're saying is that we make that choice to allow phones, smartwatches, television, media, social media, you name it, just being a couch potato, allowing those distractions to step in our way of being productive and efficient.
That is correct. And I would ask everyone, go rewind this for a minute and a half and go listen exactly what Natalie said, because that is you had so many good tips there about how you can pretty easily start to remove those distractions proactively. And I steal this from an old boss of mine. It's the creep, crawl, walk, run method. Don't think you have to start running on this. Just start creeping a little bit. Even if that's, I'm going to quarantine my phone for 30 minutes while I work on something important. Yeah. Or if I work on an application, like you had talked about, I'm taking notes, silence the other notifications during that time frame so that you're able to devote your focus to that. And once you find when you start creeping, it gets a lot easier to then crawl, walk, and run.
I love that. And for me personally, where I find I'm most drawn to get distracted is if I'm tired. So if I don't get a good night's sleep and I need to be focusing on something and I'm tired, I'm like, I'm just going to watch a TikTok video, because I don't want to use the mental brain to do something. So I think it goes to that self-care, which you put on there is one of the most important things. If I am rested and I get up, I am so efficient. I get so much stuff done. Yeah. But if I'm not, I'll be TikTok and Netflixing and all the other things.
Yes. And that's me too. It's so easy to just say, I'll watch this video, or I'll take a look at this short for just a little bit. And before you know it, it's not one short, it's 30 shorts.
Exactly.
And you're still doing it, and it's 20 minutes later and you're thinking,
what just happened?
What have I done? What have I done?
Well, I notice it because we coach on Zoom and we teach classes as well. And I turn off my notifications, and I turn it off for the entire day. So it's not like I turn it off for an hour. And it's interesting when I'm on calls with clients and I can see their eyes go into the corner of their computer, I'll usually just stop talking until they notice. And then I'm like, let's turn the notifications off unless you need to take care of that right now.
Yeah.
But you're paying me to be here. And they're like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry. So
that's also the misnomer that people think that they can multitask.
Yeah.
And that's one of the other areas that I look at and work with clients on, is this idea that says, I can do more than one thing at one time. And it's not me. It's a lot of people smarter than me, whether you do the CDC, whether you do the World Health Organization, whether you do the Mayo Clinic, whoever, anyone who's done that study says our brains are wired to do one thing at a time. Mm-hmm. So I ask people, don't think you can multitask. I think the closest thing to that to me is a musician. I think musicians, so my favorite rock group is the rock group Rush. It's my favorite band. And their lead singer wrote his autobiography earlier this year. And he notated about how he said, I will be playing the bass, I'll be singing the song, and in my head, I'll be saying, what is the next song? Now, somebody might say, well, look, he's multitasking. And I'm like, no, he's really not, because he has spent thousands of hours to practice so that his brain has a memory pattern set into it, that when I'm playing this song, I'm singing this way. And his actual focus is on what's my next song. So I tell everybody, if you think you can multitask, try this. Spend hours and hours and hours trying to do email and watch TV at the same time and see how well you do. Then if you think you do well, go to your next staff meeting when your boss is there. Try that with your boss and see how well that goes.
not going to be well received. Not well received.
Well, and that's why it's so important to create those habits. But it's just like walking and talking. Well, we can walk and talk because I can walk without even thinking about it.
Yes.
That makes it, yeah. So, yeah, interesting. Yeah, we've heard this, but multitasking is not a thing.
It's not. And I feel when you, the person that might have identified that this person, that's playing the bass and singing and thinking about the next song is multitasking, that's like finding justification for, right? Like it's trying to find that evidence to support their belief. It's not out there, you guys. We can't do it. There are some things that we do without thinking. And, we always make the example of like driving, where you drive home from work or you drive to the gym and you forget, did I take the turn? Did I stop at the red light? I have no idea because you're on autopilot. And it's just because the repetitive nature of that drive over and over again is ingrained. And your brain is now focused on something else. So whatever the other thing is that distracted you, you aren't multitasking. You're on autopilot in one and thinking about something else in the other.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
I couldn't disagree with that at all.
Yeah. So 5 key areas that David mentioned, because I want to make sure that we don't miss those: the planning, the task admin and task management portion, focus, organization, and personal care. And if we could just spend a few moments, I think, in those 5 key areas, when we're talking about planning, just brief overview, David, what does that look like when you discuss planning with your clients?
Yeah. So planning, there's 2 key elements in planning, and that's meeting preparation and meetings, because I think any of us who's coached anybody, particularly in a business environment, the subject of meetings comes up, and how I am in way too many meetings. What a waste of my time. And so those elements, that's one of the key segments of planning. And I work with clients on saying, you owe, whether you're a participant or you are the facilitator, to first of all, plan before that meeting. If you're a participant, you need to challenge the facilitator if that meeting even needs to happen. Can you answer that before you even hit, yes, I'm going to attend? But then if you're going to attend, you owe them to be all in. Pam, you brought up the example of how on Zoom, same thing. I have 2 screens above me, and my eyes, if they go up there, I'm not paying attention or I'm doing something else. And so you have to say to yourself, I owe it to that person if I said I'm going to be in that meeting to give it my all. And if you're the leader of that meeting, you owe it to your participants to have a well-structured meeting, what you want to accomplish out of that. And then both of you all follow up in that meeting. So whether you're the facilitator, hey, this is what I saw. These are the key takeaways. And if you're the participant, it's the same thing. This is what I saw. These are the key takeaways you gave me, so that in the end, you're not, because I know for me in the business world, I spent more time chasing things after a meeting because everyone's on to the next important topic. And you're constantly I do it with clients all the time. And I know I have to. I chase clients because, hey, you're supposed to get me this today. Can we get that? And that's fine. That's okay. It's a client. But if you're in a meeting with peers or a supervisor, you owe it for each other's time to spend it following up.
Beautiful. I think that's huge. I love taking that sense of ownership. Like, you owe it to yourself and the person that you're showing up for and with, your peers that you're showing up with. Because oftentimes, like you said, you'll show up to a meeting and you're completely distracted, or you accept a meeting and you say, I can do that. But in the meantime, I'm also going to work on insert secondary project on the second screen, because we've all set ourselves up now, for the most part, on multiple monitors where we're trying to do that multitask.
Yes, that is correct.
Absolutely.
So that's the biggest element out of planning that I tell people, because it connects virtually with all of us.
Yes.
We're in meetings at some point.
Yeah. What about focus?
Yeah.
So focus that is the single biggest category challenge for everybody. Talked about distractions in those. So that's it. That's one of the inner focus items. There's 2 major components of focus. There's inner focus and outer focus. And inner focus contains distractions, procrastination, and then motivation. Those 3 elements are what you need to do internally to be able to optimize your time better. And then external focus is interruptions. Those come from the outside in. We don't necessarily have as much control over external or outer focus. Then, so I had mentioned interruptions. Then there is talking too much. And this means you're in an environment where everyone's just gabbing, all talk, no action. So what are you going to do there? And then the third one in there is saying no. How do I have the ability to decline without actually using the word no, without being negative about it? And so those 6 elements, with the inner and the outer focus comprising the 2 segments, make up focus. And that is by far everyone's biggest challenge in helping and trying to use their time effectively.
Yeah. I love that the saying no is part of focus, because I often don't think of it that way, because we think of it as setting boundaries. And so people always like set boundaries, but it's like, no, this is about focus and allowing yourself to be focused and not distracted by the client that calls you that wants to do something during a time where you need to be doing something else. Okay, I love that. It's just a shift.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, when you put it all together and you think procrastination, saying no, like when you put all of that in one bucket, right? And because we think about focus, but it's just like, oh no, I'm going to focus. I have 20 minutes. I'm going to work on this. But when you bundle all of these elements together, it totally does impact our focus or lack thereof.
Yeah, absolutely.
Correct. And I had a boss of mine a long time ago. I used to work for Hallmark Cards for many years. And I had a boss of mine when I first started my first job. He says, let's put things into perspective here. There has never been a greeting card emergency. No one's gone to the hospital because of a greeting card. No one's been air flighted someplace because of that. And so that message to me was, it can be okay if you can't solve the issue right away. Now, in all deference to obviously medical and emergency personnel, I know that is an emergency. But for the vast majority of us who work in corporate environment, you are allowed to take a breath and have a little bit of time before you choose to react to whatever demands of time, whether it's your own demands or someone else's. Give yourself some grace and figure it out a little bit before you respond.
We talk about that a lot, and especially in our industry, our realtors that think everything is like an emergency. Absolutely everything is an emergency, and oftentimes it's not. It's not an emergency. It's not a true emergency. It's not an emergency like somebody's dying, and so a lot of times it's because of poor planning or lack of focus. So
and emotional. I mean, gosh, in the real estate business, I can't think of anything. That's your client's biggest probably financial chunk is sitting right there on the decision. So there's natural emotions. You have to decide, can I disassociate the urgency from the emotion? Am I allowed to do that? Can I do something very quick to address the emotional, like give me a little bit of time? I need to research this, so I come back to you with the correct answer. So you address the emotional and then stave off the urgency so you have time to prepare.
Yeah. Well, and I think it goes back to the first one, which is planning. I think if you're planning with your clients or whatever, we're talking about real estate, a lot of that drama that happens could have been prevented if you actually planned and prepared. And so I think it goes very nicely with that. Love it.
I love that. And David, you said that these are the 5 things that you focus on when working with clients. Are these found in your book? Did you touch on these within the book?
Okay.
I absolutely do. Thank you for asking that. Yes. It actually, what I did in my client, when I work with clients, they take an assessment, a base assessment that I use that has these 5 categories in it and 20 attributes that roll up into those 5 categories. That actually became the outline for the book, because as I collected hundreds of these assessments, I saw patterns and I got to see things that happened. Then what was cool is I took people who did really, really well in a particular category, and I reached out to them and I said, hey, you do this really, really well. Tell me how and why. And they became featured in that particular chapter or segment of the book. So you don't get to hear just me preach, because I can get kind of clinical. I'm a systems guy. I love systems. this brings reality because I've got other people who do it well that give practical advice that sometimes doesn't exactly align with mine, but the purpose is we all have to develop our custom process. I'm not going to make a promise to you that if you read the book and you follow these 5 steps, tomorrow life is magically going to change, because I use my time differently than you do, than your listeners do. So it's about finding the right system that works for you in a framework.
Yeah, love it.
I think that's such a large piece because independent contractors or entrepreneurs often try to duplicate or replicate what they've seen as success prior to them entering into that, or other people around them that they deem to have achieved success within their business. So they structure their processes, i.e. their time management piece, around what they've seen. And oftentimes the conversation that I have with my clients is, when you're looking at time management, is, you touched on this, David, giving yourself grace, because that can also change with the season that you're in life, right? So it may have worked for 9 months out of the year, but now you found yourself with kids at home because you're on summer break. What you saw as a structure is completely out the window. And if you all do not know what that feels like, count your blessings, because it happens every summer that the kids are in school and everything that worked for 9 solid months is out the window and gone. And the same is true when you have different seasons of life. So when your kids graduate and they head off to college, now you have an abundance of time. Or when you find yourself in that stage of retirement, like you mentioned, that you have a surplus of time. What do you do with all of that? And how do you continue to work in a way that's effective and efficient and fulfilling, to honor your purpose? And like you said, brings joy to the individual.
And I'll use an example of why I so feel it's important to customize, and it's in the book. So, I will be married after I say this.
Okay. So this is not the first time that this has been said.
No, it's not. So they'll read it in my book. So if you look at my office area, I like everything neat, organized, space in place. It's set. And I walk in and I'm like, now behind the wall that is here is my wife's office. It is very different. It is, for me, it's messy. However, if you were to stand both of us in our office and either one of you was in our kitchen and you were to shout out and say, Dave, I need you to find this piece. And you say, Sue, I need you to find this piece. She will find it quicker in what I think is her messy area than I will find in my neat area. The moral to that story is, find what's right for you. And if it works for you and you're efficient, you're not letting people down, you're not failing to follow up, and maybe it's not organized, that goes back to the point, maybe what that influencer or that person's system that you're reading has worked for them because they've been doing it for years. And all of a sudden you're asked to change radically. If it works for you, don't fight it. Try to optimize it. Maybe you can put the piles in different stages or something like that if you need to. But otherwise, if it's doing well, own it and keep going.
I think that's so powerful because it's giving people permission to not have to be like somebody else. It's giving them permission to say that, you know what works for David doesn't work for me. What works for Natalie doesn't work for me, but I'll find what works for me. And work with it that way. So, because we're all completely different.
Absolutely.
Different.
Absolutely.
If some people are tech driven by tools, some people still write on a regular planner. If you're getting to the same place,
yes,
as that, then it doesn't matter at that point. It's if you're struggling with the tech, maybe you need to go a little low tech. And if you're struggling with the low tech, hey, maybe a time tracker could help you. But the idea is, as long as you're getting to the same spot when you need to, yay, congratulations.
Yeah. And I think we see this in our industry. It's like everyone, I want the next best thing. Like, give me that magic pill. It's like, there's no magic pill. It's like, you just got to find out what works for you and what you're good at and lean into it and then commit to it. I love it.
And measure.
Sure.
Am I improving?
Yeah.
In what took me an hour, can I do that in a half an hour? And I am also, from the tech standpoint, I'm a big, huge fan of automation. So you need to lean into that. So, if you've got a cadence on how you're going to reach out to a prospect or a potential new client, there's no reason why you can't automate a sequence of emails to do that for you. Then you get it off of your brain. Did I follow up with them or not? And so in that case, I embrace that from a time management standpoint. Doesn't mean, hey, if that's more time to clean up your office, great. But that should give you more time to then be directly involved with your client, providing them with greater hands-on and value, because all of the administrative stuff is automated as much as possible.
Yeah.
Love it.
I love that piece. Well, talk to us a little bit about the Infinity Lifestyle Design program, because that's separate as well. I mean, you are a man that is wearing many hats, and that is actually our love language. So that's great. Tell us about the Infinity Lifestyle Design program.
So that was born out of my own personal journey. So as I was working with clients and I am getting, understanding how to improve their time and productivity, about 2 or 3 years ago, my wife and I were having our semi-annual review with our financial advisors. And unbeknownst to me, she's asked this question. She said, well, what if Dave retired tomorrow? Where did that come from? And our advisor said, well, we'd like you to work a few more years, but basically if you wanted to eat rice and beans for a period of time, yeah, I guess if he wanted to, he could. That hit me like a ton of bricks, because I said, well, golly, what would I do with all this free time? And to give perspective, if someone's working 48 hours a week and they sleep 7 hours a night, that's 40% of your awake time is involved in your career. And I'm thinking, if that goes away, how do I fill that? So that let me on a personal journey to say, what am I going to do? I started using some of the in-career time principles and assessments. And then as I begin to say, wow, okay, there's a lot more to this than what I had thought, then I found that there were others out there like me, people in their 50s, late 50s to 60s, who are like, I have no clue what I'm going to do. And so I developed a process, again, a system guy, but then I'm like, I'm missing the heart element here, because I can, have somebody take an assessment and tell them there's these 3 or 4 things that you can do. But what does that really mean from living a purposeful, meaningful life? So I became a certified professional retirement coach that's non-financial. That helped me understand the heart element, where really it comes down, you draw out from them what is important to them and then guide them to develop that strategy. Whereas I feel that in careers more tactical, that's more of, let me give you some options for you to customize so you can think. But in the other element, it's really trying to draw out from them their feelings, because going into retirement for many is very emotional, because I may be stepping away from the absolute thing that I love to do. And that's where I'm like, work, no work, define retirement the way you want to. It doesn't have to be what society says it is.
And I love that, because it has, our careers become our identity. Mm-hmm. And so when we think about retiring, it's scary, because it's like, oh my gosh, if I am not this, then what am I? My kids are grown up and gone. I'm no longer a realtor, then what am I? And I think then helping people walk through trying to figure out what their new purpose is for this chapter of their life is incredible.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Reignite Resilience. We hope that you had amazing ahas and takeaways. Remember to subscribe on your favorite streaming platform, like it, and download the upcoming episodes. And if you know anyone in your life that is looking to continue to ignite their resilience, share it with them. We look forward to seeing you on our future episodes. And until then, continue to reignite that fire within your hearts.